Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 224 of the SoxProspects.com podcast. We're the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name's Chris Hatfield. I'm the executive editor of SoxProspects.com, and I am joined, as always, by our director of scouting and meatball subs, Ian Kundle. Ian, we got a big week here on the pod. You were in Greenville this past weekend is the biggest thing. Checking out Nick Yorke, checking out Groome. I think that's all the important people. No, there's also the meatball gang, of course, as well. But a solid week for you down in Greenville on the positive side, and then on the negative side, there's whatever the heck is happening in Boston right now. So at least we've got some positivity to balance what's happening in the major league level right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I mean, there's not a lot. I think it kind of summed up. It was the perfect storm of where the Red Sox season was headed, and then it just like was the cherry on top. You know, they were already scuffling, things were getting kind of testy, players were struggling, and then now half the team is on. Not half the team, I guess. What is it? 7 players,
more than a third.
So a third of the team. But Greenville was great. It's a beautiful town, and the baseball was also. There were some long games, but it was a lot of fun to get down and get back traveling on the road down to some games. So that was a great time.
For sure. Awesome. Well, we'll talk about what Ian saw down in Greenville. We'll talk about some comings and goings in the system, and maybe even a little bit about the major league level, for better or worse, on this episode of the show. But of course, as always, we want to thank everyone who has supported the show on patreon.com/SoxProspects. You can go on there, pledge a certain amount per episode, get us closer to the $350 per episode mark, at which point we will watch the Bad News Bears and do a special patron-only episode. Of course, if you are a patron supporter at the $2 level and up, you have access to Ian's game updates from Greenville. All 4 of them are up there now, talking in depth about what he saw. We'll talk about it some today, of course, but he filed those after every game he went to. So you'll have 4 Patreon game updates there waiting for you on patreon.com. So again, patreon.com/SoxProspects if you want to support the show. And of course, you can always rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen to the show. And of course, as always, we're going to get to your emails. If you want to send us an email, send it to podcast@SoxProspects.com. We got a bunch of them this week, so we'll get to those. We want to talk about what you want to hear about, so hit us up. Comments, thoughts, questions, concerns, things you want to know about that we're not talking about. Hit us up there, and we'll talk about it here on the show. Ian, let's dive into some news first before we get into Greenville, before we get into Boston. A lot of promotions over the past week and a half or so. We're recording this on Wednesday night, September the 1st. We delayed by a day or two, in part because of travel and in part for Ian, and in part because just trying to get our heads around what's happening up in Boston. So I guess starting with last week, the promotions were more on the lower end, Ian, where we saw more of the FCL guys moving up to Salem. We saw 3 college-level draftees and first baseman Nico Cavadas, catcher Nathan Hickey, and pitcher Jacob Webb moving up from the Florida Complex League to Salem, as well as Wickleman Gonzalez, not a draftee, but really a pop-up guy at the rookie complex, in the Complex League. Kind of came out of nowhere to the point where he might be a top 20 guy in our rankings update that we're going to talk about next episode, just to give people a heads up that we'll be talking about that next week. Getting up to Salem, a good thing to see. Any thoughts on those promotions? I think it does seem like, I think you had said, and we talked about this. You actually had called last week, by the way. Someone pointed this out. You had called the Cavadas promotion right on the screws. So good work.
I mean, it made sense given the profile of guys they've been promoting. Like, it seems like they want to get almost all of the college guys up to the to Salem.
Yeah.
So that, made sense. The Cavadas seemed like his kind of approach and his profile seemed like someone who was, as a bat first guy, who was ready to be pushed. Plus, we talked about a lot, like the FCL team has way too many players, especially offensively, to the point they're basically running 2 teams. So it would be nice to like clear some of that out and get some guys up to Salem in order to, give more bats to some other younger guys down there.
Yeah, even after all of these promotions, Ian, and after all the promotions and after, Ricardo Cubeon got moved up to Worcester because they just needed bodies because of all the guys that the Major League Club is having to pull up. There's still 39 active guys in Florida, including, by the way, I don't know if you saw this, Ryan Zefferjohn finally made a start yesterday after, would it be 2 months?
I did. When I was doing my box score recap on Twitter, I saw him, and then also Michael Getty has made his debut on the mound, which was kind of interesting.
That's the other thing too.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Michael Getty's, we should mention, he had been on the development list for a while, and I don't know about you, Ian, I just assumed tweaking the swing. Because as we've talked about, as you've mentioned, power, field, can run, plus arm. Just can't hit. But that said, when you think about that profile, this kind of makes sense.
Well, he's also uber athletic too. He is just, he's a great athlete, great arm. Why not? Give it a shot. The Red Sox have had success conversions in the past. They did it with William Perez, who in the big leagues. I don't think he's there right now. I think he's in AAA, but he's been in the big leagues. Jordan Weems is on a big league roster. Same thing. So, and they've shown a willingness to do it as long. But the key, I think, is you got to get the player to buy in too. Sure. And that's kind of the hard part sometimes. But if Getty's is committed, I mean, he has the kind of tools you're looking for in a conversion player. Absolutely.
So we'll see how he does down in Florida. He'll probably be down there the rest of the year. I wouldn't expect him. I mean, we've got 3 weeks left in the season. So that was pretty interesting. But then on the promotions front, we've got a couple this week, Ian, that I think we reported, actually. One, Jay Groome is technically not, these technically haven't happened yet, but we know that they're happening. Jay Groome is getting promoted from Greenville to Portland for his next start, which should be, I think, on Friday. If not Friday, then Saturday, because he started on Sunday while you were there in Greenville. He'll make his next start for the AA Portland Sea Dogs. And lefty Jeremy Wu-Yelland is getting promoted from Salem to Greenville. On that one, I mean, he, posted on Instagram the plane ticket at the airport photo. So we know that one's happening too. A couple of interesting promotions, Ian. We'll talk more about Groome when we get into what you saw. Maybe we can lead with him almost as kind of a transition out of this. But Wu-Yelland is kind of interesting. Just, having saw him earlier in the year, I really liked him. And I think one thing that we've pointed out is that the walks just have to come down. But the stuff is intriguing. It might be a bullpen arm, but, certainly as a left-hander, that would still be a weapon. And he's an interesting guy moving up to Greenville in his first full season.
Yeah, he's obviously, he's gotten a lot of strikeouts. I think the strikeout rate's over 10 per 9. Ton of walks, which is unfortunate. But kind of that's kind of the profile that was expected. And he's not going that deep into games. He has 67 innings out of 20 starts. So we're talking, 3 to 4 inning starts usually. But his stuff is really good. I've heard it grades out really well on the models and TrackMan wise. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting arm. It's just, I think there's just a lot of reliever risk given the command and control profile. But, as you said, the bar for a lefty is pretty low, excuse me. Yep. So if he's, above average fastball, above average breaking ball, that's enough usually as a lefty to at least get a cup of coffee in the majors. Sure.
Absolutely. So a couple of really interesting promotions there. One other news note I wanted to get to, Ian, the kind of thing that we've been kind of adding this Happy Trails segment to the show, and we got a couple actually that I just realized I don't have one written down, but it definitely happened today. A couple of Happy Trails from the system. The first one is infielder Danny Diaz, who was released, I guess, technically yesterday. Diaz never made it out of the Rookie Complex League, signed for $1.6 million in this 2017 July 2nd class that I tweeted about today, and it's, man, what a weird class that is. And we can get to that in a minute. But for Diaz specifically, he peaked at 14th in the Sox prospects rankings. In his first pro season in the Dominican Summer League, he hit 6 home runs in 26 games, which is kind of unheard of, actually, to just that kind of power output for a guy that age. The numbers didn't jump off the page at you. It was a 283 on base percentage, 238 average. But, again, it was 6 bombs and 7 doubles. 2019 went up to the Gulf Coast League and hit 210 in 26 games before getting demoted. And we had kind of inquired about it, and we were basically told, did something happen? And I guess we don't know that something didn't happen, but we're basically told, no, this is basically just where he should be. And so he went down to the DSL, hit really well to close out 2019, but then this year in Florida, he was hitting 173 at the time he was released. Decent power, 5 doubles and 2 walks in 22 games, 2 bombs, not 2 walks. But just wasn't getting it done at the plate. You talked about too, Ian, just on the defensive side, he signed as a shortstop, grew a ton. It wound up, I should mention he broke his hamate bone in July 2018, and that's part of his season actually ended early. So it was 6 home runs in like half a DSL season. But, grew really big, really quick. I think he gained like 3 inches and 40 pounds or something after he signed.
He was like 6'1", 170 when he signed. And then by the first time he showed up, he was 6'3", like 240 or something.
Yeah. He just blew up. Not necessarily just in a growing way, not like he was eating, ding dongs or, Twinkies. But, defensively was in he had moved to third. He was starting to play a lot more first base. He was playing kind of a, corner infielder playing both. Wasn't getting it done and got released. That class, Ian, I tweeted about it today. It's Diaz getting $1.6 million. It's Daniel Flores getting, more than over, I think 3.1 and unfortunately passing away. It's Anthony Flores got 1.4. He's in Salem and he's not ranked in our rankings right now. He didn't get a single vote, I don't think. Or he might have gotten a couple votes, but like in the 70s for our rank, he's not ranked. At the top where they spent a ton of money, they just haven't gotten a lot for reasons not necessarily within their control. And then you look lower in the class and you've got Brian Bayo for $28K, Gilberto Jimenez for $10, and I think Cedon Rafaela for $5K, I think it was. Just a very weird international class.
It was, and I think it just shows the volatility of the market. You have the guys, you get the big bonuses. Flores is an exception because that's obviously a tragic situation, and everything we've heard, like Eddie Romero, when we interviewed him back in the before the season started, I think had some really nice words to say about Flores and kind of talked about the type of player and person he could have been. And so that's kind of obviously a unique situation, but with like Diaz and Flores, it just shows, the volatility. Those guys are, what was it, almost over $3 million combined outlay on those guys.
Those two
almost $3 million.
I think it's 3 even, 1.6 and 1.4.
And they're going to end up, neither of them is probably going to get out of high A or get out of low A. Frankly, I don't think Flores will ever make it out of low A. And then on the flip side, the top guys from the class are all 5-10K signings. So it's why it shows why teams are willing to sign so many guys out of there and take those shots, because you never know who's going to turn out.
Yeah, and it's why I just don't put a lot of stock into. We get asked pretty often if the Red Sox don't have like a top 10 international free agent prospect on like MLB.com's rankings, because they still do them by projected talent and or on BAs where they rank by bonus. Why aren't the Red Sox in on any of these top guys? Well, I don't know if it's a strategy thing or not, but like I don't care. Give it 2 years before I care, honestly. Or give it a year with good reports before I really put much stock into it. So interesting there. The other thing, Ian, that I wanted to get to that we learned yesterday, that infielder Tanner Nishioka retired. Nishioka was a 9th round pick in 2017 out of the Pomona Pitzer program, which is, for those who don't know, Pomona and Pitzer are separate colleges. They have combined athletics. Led Division III in home runs as a senior at Pomona. Senior signs, that's why he was a 9th rounder. It's always kind of misleading, right? Where he's the highest drafted player out of Pomona in the program's history, but it was as a senior sign who only got $5,000 as a signing bonus. But first full pro season, went to Greenville and hit 322, 401, 512. We were kind of wondering, is there something here? The next season kind of struggled in high A Salem, struggled with injuries. Wasn't a great fielder. This year was in Portland, was hitting 253, 315, 413. And he just he retired on the 30th. So that would have been Sunday. In his final pro game, and I believe it was in his final 2 at bats, or at least one of them was in his final at bat at least, went deep twice, Ian, for 2 of his 6 bombs on the year. hell of a way to go out. I mean, just with the mic drop.
It definitely is. I do wonder this timing. If I had to guess, he's going back to school because I think he wanted to be like a neurosurgeon or something like that.
He majored in neuroscience and was in their he went to Pomona for their pre-med program.
That's what I mean. So I have a feeling that he's going back to school, and it makes sense obviously because schools are starting up over the next couple of weeks or just right now. So
that's what I thought.
I'm guessing he knew this was coming for a while, and I wonder if part of why he played when he did in that game was they knew this was coming too. And I mean, heck of a way to go out, pretty awesome. And he was very serviceable, like depth guy for his 4 years in the system. So pretty nice to have a career like that, and then walk away on your own terms.
Oh, and and it wasn't a playing time thing either, because if he were in Portland right now, he would be playing every day because they are capital T thin position player wise right now. They've got a 2-man bench they're running at the moment. So, I mean, they are thin and could use some bodies for sure in Portland. So, it's a 2-man bench. And, right now in our projected lineup that we have for them, we've got a catcher as the DH. So, just to show you that they could be using him, but good luck to him. Maybe we'll see if we can find out a little more there, what the deal is. And man, drop it to I got to ask you, do you remember your last organized baseball game?
Yeah.
Do you remember it at all? Do you remember anything about it? How you played? Anything that happened or not?
Yeah, I hit a home run in it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Like set the stage for me here. Like, was it like dramatic?
It was. I mean, it was if we won the game, we won. Well, we kind of already won the league, but it was down at St. Andrews down in Rhode Island, and I got up and I hit a home run, and then that was it. We ended up killing. I think we won by a lot. I can't remember exactly, but then we did the whole pig pile on the field after the game and all that fun stuff. So
nice.
it was pretty fun.
Nice. I'm trying to
went out on top.
That's good.
Went out on top, as they say.
Yeah, my last game would have been summer league because when I went off to college,
I guess that you're right.
Did you have summer league?
I did, yeah, and I don't remember.
Did I ruin it? I'm sorry. See, I wouldn't have.
100%. That was my high school game. I played summer league after that, and I don't remember what happened in that. No.
Well, so what happened is for senior Babe Ruth, while I was at college. Would this have been the summer after college or was it the summer before college? I can't remember. They extended the age you could play summer Babe Ruth a year. So I basically came back, wanted to play because hell yeah, I'll play another summer. And the coach was kind of like, so this is supposed to be kind of in part to prepare players for the spring season. So we don't know what to do with you. So I did this thing where I was like a player coach, where I was mostly a coach, but they'd throw me in at bat here or there. And my final at bat, I'm fairly certain, it wasn't a bomb, but it was like a double that one hopped the fence, and I was not even close to being a power hitter. So I just
I played summer league after the high school season ended. I don't remember any of that really. So unfortunately, that was not my final at bat.
No, well, I mean, we'll roll with it.
I consider in what's it called, and then I guess now it's I haven't picked up a bat in several years since my shoulder, so I guess I have no cool adult softball stories of hitting tanks to share either.
No, I mean softball's different. Slow pitch is huge at UVA Law, but
we played it in college, and then I played it after, but I retired a few years ago. Hung it up.
Yeah, I could tell you, just to be fair, my final legit high school appearance was a whiff. In a playoff.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember if that was my final bat. It happened in the final game.
Okay.
I don't remember
close
the
enough.
whole game. I just know I homered in the last game of my high school career,
which is
so
solid.
Cool.
Stick with that story, man. It's better.
But, I mean, it's not a story that happened, but yeah.
Well, no. I meant use that as the.
Oh yeah, I don't remember. Exactly
I'm not implying you're lying.
Yeah, no, I don't remember the content. I tried to find the news article about the game, but I couldn't find it because it's probably
I see Ian Googling furiously.
Well, no. Why would the Patriot Ledger still have archives from 10 plus years ago of high school baseball? I mean, I don't know why that.
I've seen weirder, man. I've seen weirder.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Anyway, all right. Well, do we need to talk about the MLB team real quick? I think we need to mention because just the number of guys who have had to come up. There are rules that I didn't know existed. It's a mess. So right now, your Boston Red Sox have 8 players on the COVID-19 IL as we talk this evening. Xander Bogaerts, Jairo Munoz, Kike Hernandez, Christian Arroyo, Matt Barnes, Martin Perez, Hirokazu Saramura, and Josh Taylor. Not all of them have tested positive. I think Taylor is just a close contact, right? One of them is just a close contact.
The positives are Munoz, Bogaerts, Saramura, Barnes.
Yeah, it's Barnes and Perez
and Hernandez, and then Arroyo
and Taylor are close contacts.
Arroyo and Taylor are close contacts. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, fair. Not good to lose 8 of your. I mean, I guess it's now 28, but at the time, 26 guys over the course of less than a week. We've seen some weirdness. This is like someone was comparing it to 2006 online. I mean, just the names of players who are up. We saw Jonathan Aruz come up. We saw Jarren Duran come back up. No brainers. That's fine. But players who've made their major league debuts this week include Raynel Espinal, who threw 2 innings in relief a couple nights ago. Jack Lopez. He should be back.
I bet Espinal will be back up. He's actually decent.
He could. I mean, so weird thing, but here's the weird thing, is he's not on the 40 because the rule that we learned is apparently if you are replacing a player on the COVID IL, the team can remove you from the 40 without exposing you to waivers.
Which I think is fair because, if not, you run into a horrible situation where teams are going to be adding guys and then just DFAing immediately. And it's well, do we just call up a not good player because we don't want to lose them?
Exactly.
It creates a whole can of worms.
Well, because if you've got 8 guys suddenly on the IL, you right now, so let's use 26, right? You need a 26-man roster. You put 8 on the COVID IL. Yes, it removes them from the 40, but so that's 34. The Red Sox had Darwinzon on the Hernandez on the IL at the time. Danny Santana on the IL. There's only so many guys in the system. Yaxel Rios is on the 40, but he's on the minor league IL.
Well, then you have Brian Motto's on the minor league IL, but then you actually have the minor leaguers. Jay Groome's not coming up. Jason Rosario is not coming up. Hudson Potts isn't coming up. Jeter Downs isn't coming up.
Downs probably would be up, but he's on the IL as well. Well, Downs isn't on the 40, but
isn't he not? Oh no, he's not yet. You're right.
But I mean, you're right. But that said, I think I agree with the point where if he weren't on Worcester's injured list, as of Sunday, I guess he's got thumb inflammation. I wouldn't have been surprised if he came up just to be screw it. Get the kid.
We
you know
need
what
someone.
I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Grant Williams is up at some point. I mean, they just they're so low on bodies that, and they're still -3 on their 40 man even after the moves today. So they have guys that they could bring in and out if they needed to. It's a tough situation. I mean,
that's what removing 8 guys from your injured list from your 40 man will do.
There's nothing you could. I mean. It's not once it gets going, it doesn't seem like there's anything they can really do except it's just going to play out how it's going to play out.
Right. Right. I mean, your starting middle infield right now is Jack Lopez and Jonathan Aruz. Kyle Schwarber's playing first base again tonight, so that's cool.
But I mean, it is we don't need to get into the other part of the discussion.
No, and we're not going to.
There.
I mean, look, I mean, people want to talk about it. It's all speculation. Is all I'll say.
Yeah.
So,
But it's just it's not a great time for this to happen. I mean, there's never a good time, but just in terms of the way the team was scuffling and the lack of, I just think it's the high minors depth that they kind of thought they had coming into the year. It's just they've had some really rough patches with that, and we're kind of seeing the fruits of that right now with who they're having to turn to both on the mound and at the plate.
Yeah, I mean the timing for this kind of thing is never good, but. Man, like you said, for a team that's struggling the way they were. Names that have come up, Ian: Brad Peacock, Raynel Espinal, Steven Gonsalves, John Schreiber, Jack Lopez. Anyone on there stand out to you as worth mentioning?
I mean, Gonsalves is kind of interesting as a left. He's 92, 94, but it's a reliever profile. Schreiber's the same thing. He's a slingy side armor.
From the right side.
I saw him earlier this year. I couldn't find my notes, but if I remember correctly, he was 89 to 92 or 89 to 91. Like big slurvy breaking ball, sidearm like deception type. Seems like an up and down profile. Lopez is like the quintessential organizational utility player, like great teammate, great guy to have around, versatile defender, has some contact skills, no real power. He's someone that, every org would love to have and just sticks around. And I'm happy for him that he's finally getting a shot, heck of a year getting a silver medal and then getting his major league debut and cashing a few of those MLB checks. And it's funny, actually, I'm watching the game right now, and Darren Fenster is coaching first base, which shows that the coaching staff, they're having some issues too.
Because it was Goodwin and
the trainer, I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting, they're clearly having it because Darren Fenster's like the minor league roving
outfield
hitting
coordinator.
And outfield coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're kind of
yeah.
It's not a great situation. So hopefully they can, the guys, they'll get them back soon and no one has serious symptoms or any, side effects or anything after that.
For sure. The primary thing is everyone's health, of course. So, hey, it is what it is. All right, Ian, let's move on to more fun and interesting things to talk about. You went to Greenville for 4 games. I think let's open with saying we talk about supporting the show, supporting the podcast, supporting the website. This is what we mean. We can do this because of your support. We can do things like send Ian to Greenville. And years that he goes to Instructs, though, maybe
we'll see.
We'll see what happens there, whether it's there or something else. We've got some plans. Don't want to really talk about them until they happen because, who knows?
Plans can change.
Plans can absolutely change. Plans subject to change. But you saw the Greenville Drive, who, of course, let's remind everyone, is the High A affiliate of the Boston Red Sox right now.
It is. It is also a lovely town.
I love Greenville. If you can go.
I would, I was to say, if just kind of a side note, I've been to Greenville, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times over the course. Haven't been in a few years, and just the combination of the location, because the town of Greenville is lovely. There's great food options. It's just a really nice, quiet town, or it's a city, I guess, but it's quiet. There's not that many people, so you can walk around. You can walk at pretty much everywhere. The ballpark is walking distance from downtown. So I stayed downtown and I could just walk to the game, which was incredible. There's just really good food options. It's just a lovely place to visit, and I would highly recommend it. And then also it helps that Ford Field is one of the best parks in minor league baseball. It's just it's just a fantastic park. The sight lines are good. It's very comfortable. It's very new. They have an ownership group that's committed to the team. They're committed to the city. They invest a lot of money into it. They're always doing improvements. Now they've taken over the roof of the apartment building behind left field, and they have like a party deck up there for events.
Really? That's
above
new.
The Green Monster, which is very cool. They have the Green Monster with seats on it now. Like, they just keep making improvements to that place, and it's just, the park is great, and it's just a really fun place to watch a game. I mean, they had like dollar beer nights on Thursday for those who are of the legal drinking age. Had a great time, I'm sure.
I have been to dollar beer night in Greenville.
Yeah, I mean, it was a packed house.
From what I remember, it was a good time.
Yeah, but yeah, like stuff like that. It's just a great place to watch a game, and it was a lot of fun to get back there. And the people down there are great too. The staff with the drive is just some of the best people you'll meet. So it was just a very, very fun few days.
On that point, I mean, the Red Sox between there and Portland, they've got a couple of really nice spots to visit.
Yeah, I mean, even and Worcester now is like that area that the stadium's in, and is an up and coming part of Worcester. It's getting better. I've not been to Salem yet, so I don't have any judgment on that, but we'll see what happens if that.
It's not a vacation town, put it that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fine, but it's just a very different locale. Like, I'm not trying to, trash Salem. It's just not, not Greenville or Portland.
But yeah, no, the Red Sox are lucky, and I think it just emphasized again to me why it was the Red Sox made it clear that they wanted to keep Greenville during the minor league reorganization, and why they're committed to Greenville, obviously, for the next decade at least, and I'm sure as long as they can possibly be there, because it's one of the better high A or low A facilities in the country.
And if I could just throw one more thing in there before we get to the on-field stuff, I believe they didn't let anyone go during the pandemic. At least at one point.
From what I understand, they did not. Yeah.
Which is not the norm.
No, certainly not. And I think the other thing is too that just like emphasizing those facilities, if Greenville could be a AAA team. Like the park is nice enough, and if I don't know if it's big enough, but it's nice enough. The facilities are nice enough that it could at least be AA,
yes.
if not AAA. So
yeah, it could definitely be AA. The thing with AAA,
nice
AAA they tend to be larger towns too, because you need a big transportation hub usually because you're close to the major leagues and all that. So,
I mean, Greenville has a big airport though, like 20 minutes away. They have GSP. It's an international airport.
And you're an hour from Charlotte.
Exactly, which is where I flew into Charlotte and drove, and it was very easy. And I'm very glad I did because I didn't realize that there's a big college football game in Charlotte this coming weekend. So I'm glad I went when I did.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. All right, on field, Ian, let's talk about that. Do you just start with the obvious one? I mean,
who, Joe Davis? No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk about Big Joe in a little bit. Yeah. But
Nick
I guess, I thought you were going to start with Jay.
I was going to start with Yorke. I mean, I know we were going to say we're going to transition from Groome, but Yorke's let's make people... Do we make people wait for Yorke? I mean, Groome's the other one too, because you saw Jay Groome's last high A start.
I did.
So what did he look at like in his last high A start? Because we've talked a little bit about Groome based on reports. But so what did you see in person?
So I had heard that basically that his velocity was down and his curveball is kind of not as good as it used to be. And so he's basically throwing 4 pitches and mixing them pretty equally with the secondaries. And that was what I saw. It was, I don't know if you can bring up his line. I think he threw like 6 innings, gave up 8 hits. 3
on the
runs.
Night?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But we'll bring up his season line. But in this game, it was like 6 innings, 8 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 home run, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. And, like he was fine, but I just wasn't, it's not the same. And I said this on Twitter and people were kind of confused. He's not the same pitcher he was pre-surgery or back even, a couple years ago when I saw him. Because back when he was like pre-Tommy John, he would sit 93 to 95, get up to 96 with a double plus breaking ball, And now it's more his fastball he came out 92 to 94, but he settled in. He was 90 to 93 by like the 3rd inning. And he pitched most of the game, 89 at 90, 91, 92. So his velocity is down, and then secondary wise, I thought his changeup was better than his curveball. And he kind of threw his curveball, changeup, and slider equal amounts. So it's not like he's relying on the curveball. It's just there are a bunch of average-ish secondaries. Like I'd probably go like 55 on the changeup, maybe 50 on the curveball, 45 on the slider. But I've heard some scouts go 55 on the curveball, 50 on the changeup. It's basically he's a 4-pitch guy with 4 average-ish pitches. With he has some feel on the mound. There's some effort in the delivery. There's velocity tends to decrease as the game goes on because I think there are some conditioning concerns. It's a huge frame. He's not in the best of shape compared to some other times I've seen him in the past, I think I'll say. And I long term, I think you just kind of have to adjust expectations. He doesn't have the ceiling that he had in the past. I think it's more, this best case is a number 4 starter, number 5 starter, but he's more like a back end profile now than someone who had the potential to be a 2 or a 3.
Just to get that line, he went 6 innings, 8 hits, 3 runs, all earned, 1 walk, 8 Ks, and did give up.
Yeah, and he had like 20 swinging strikes. He struck out 8. Like he was missing bats. But the stuff, it just doesn't blow you away anymore. It's more he's going to have to get by being a guy who can mix all 4 pitches and he's going to have to command. And I think the thing is his command right now is just it's below average command. He's got to get that up because he doesn't have that blow away stuff like he used to. Like it's going to work in the low minors. But even against more advanced low minors hitters, like he had a tank hit off him by a lefty. Who was it? Was it Dustin Harris or Trevor Hauver? It was one of the big prospects on the team. And it was a fastball. It was just like a 91 mile per hour fastball, and the lefty went other way off it. And in the past, Groome would bust the guy up with 95 if he's a lefty, and now he just doesn't have that velocity in him anymore. So he's just got to be more, he's got to keep the ball down. He's got to be hitting his spots and mixing pitches, and that's kind of just the pitcher he is. The things I do like, though, is that, and I don't want to seem like I'm bashing him, is his changeup and slider have come a long way from what they used to be. Like his changeup when he first came in was a well below average pitch. It was like a 30 pitch, and he rarely threw it, which as a high school guy was understandable because if you have good velocity as a high schooler, you're not throwing a changeup because that's running into the bat of most guys. But now, like, I thought as I said, I thought it was his best secondary. It's interesting, though, he only uses it against righties. He didn't throw a single left changeup. And having seen the data, that's like consistent across the season. It's just a pitch he exclusively uses against righties, but it's good enough to get right. I think he got like 6 or 7 swing and misses on it. So that's a pretty good outcome with that. And then against lefties, he's mostly a curveball slider of the two. And the sliders like 82 to 87. It was all over the place velocity wise. But he threw a couple like, average ones, somewhere 35s and 40s. It's an inconsistent pitch. I think the curveball is a little more consistent. It was 78 to 80, but I just like he's got 4 pitches. They're in 4 different velocity bands. You've got 78 to 80, 80 to 82 on the changeup, then you got 82 to 87 on the slider. So that's good. So he definitely has some things working for him, and most importantly, he stayed healthy this year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what he does in his 3-4 week cameo up in AA.
Yeah, I mean, Groome, it's interesting that the slider I think is new this year, so he's still tweaking it to hear. He
started at Instructs last year.
Oh, Instructs last year. Okay, fair. All right, thank you for the correction. That's right. But the point being, it's new, so we'll see where you go. Just to hear that you're already throwing like a 40, 45 on it.
Yeah, it's like, it's inconsistent, but it would flash some potential. I'm
interested to see if they send Groome to Arizona.
Because
he did miss,
but his ramp up innings wise is going to be. He's already at a lot. Like, I don't know if you have his like stats for.
Yeah, on the year, I just had it up and I moved over. Baseball Reference doesn't have the start you saw for some weird reason.
I've been noticing that they've been updating stuff really late, and it's weird and it's kind of annoying. But I've been having to use like MILB for that. But I can't do my like date searches on MILB. It's very.
You could do it on Fangraphs if Fangraphs is updated.
Very baseball problems, but
first world baseball problems. But yeah, he did, with Groome, he missed the basically 3 weeks for the birth of his daughter, which I think, look, you take a planned skip, you extend it by a week or 2, whatever. I think I'm with you. I don't see him going for that reason.
Well, because I think the thing with me is that he's already at 82 innings this year. You figure he'll get to about 100 this year. He threw 0 in 2020 in real games. He threw 4 in real games in 2019. He threw 0 in real games in 2018, and he threw like 55 in 2017. Like, he's going to basically he's already eclipsed his career innings total this year.
Yeah, and he did throw playoff. They don't have postseason cumulative.
No, but it was like 3 starts of 2 innings or something. Like, it wasn't like he was throwing, deep in games.
2019. Yeah, okay. In 2019, he threw 5 2/3 in 2 starts. You can get it on MLB now. That's awesome.
So he threw 9 2/3 innings that year.
He threw 3 more innings in a playoff game in 2016. Not that it matters.
Yeah, but so his innings workload, I think, is the issue. But the good thing is that his fastball, even though it's like in the low 90s, it does have some life, and it has shown the ability to miss bats. He's 108 strikeouts in 81 innings. And so there is definitely some hope. It's just, I think you just have to readjust expectations. He's not the type of pitcher that's going to be like a number 2 or a number 3 anymore, unless that velocity and that breaking ball comes back at some point in the future, which, you never know how Tommy John's recoveries are going to be, but I think that now that we're 3 years out and it's still not back, I think it's unlikely.
Let's talk about the other big name guy, Ian, Nick Yorke. I think it's safe to say, loved him. Is that fair? At least the swing.
He is offensively, it's remarkable. I said it. It's one of the most impressive advanced offensive profiles for a teenager that I've seen in the system in some years. Like, he just controls the bats. He knows what he's looking for. He waits. He's willing to wait back. He'll use all fields. There's power. I talked about it or tweeted about it, but the last batter, the last inning of the last game I was there on Sunday, he got a 96 mile per hour fastball up and in on his hands and turned on it and hit it out to left like 410 feet at 106 miles an hour. That's the type of pitch that we talked about with Bobby Dahlbeck and Michael Chavis that they haven't been able to hit at the MLB level for years. And this was like a 96 fastball with like good spin rate. It was a good pitch, and he just turned on it. And he's got bat speed. He's got the hands, the separation, the swing. Like, he's the potential for the total package at the plate. He's going to get on base. He's got a good approach. He knows the strike zone. He can recognize spin. There will be some swing and miss, but it's not going to be. I don't think it'll be like an overwhelming level. I know there were some forum posters concerned because he had like 7 strikeouts in his first 5 games or something, but okay. Don't worry about it. It'll level out eventually, just like it did in Salem. And I think the thing that just was so impressive was just his just the way he used all fields. Like, that last game was the best example of that. And I'll have some video up pretty soon on like some videos of his swing, some slow-mo stuff, some really good stuff on his swing. But in that game, he had 2 doubles and a home run. And the doubles were, the first one was he got a 2-2 fastball. He got a 2-2 slider, and he just really, this was a second at bat, excuse me. He got a fastball in on the hands, turned on. My notes are all over the place.
You did the same thing. I'm laughing because you did the same thing in the game update.
Probably, yeah. His second at bat, 2-2. He got a fastball in on the hands, turned on it like double. So this was it's actually a 1-1 count now that I'm reading my notes correctly. Next at bat, he got a 3-2, and this was like a 9-pitch at bat, and he got a 3-2 fastball up away. That was probably a strike. And just stayed back, threw his hands at the ball, doubled down the line, almost went out, frankly. It went to like the warning track in the air and got a double. So, we got 2 doubles now. Final at bat, 96 up in on the hands, turns on, gets the bat inside the ball and crushes it, 410 to left center field. He's going all fields. He can really hit. And it's hit over power. Like, I think that I'll probably go, 60 on the hit tool and 50 on the power. But I would not be surprised if the power eventually nudges up. We're talking about a kid who's still only 19 years old. He's got to get more into the weight system. And yeah, it's just a really exciting player. And it's a heck of a pick by the Red Sox. The fact that they had the gumption and were willing to go out on a limb and buck the industry consensus and grabbing him where they did. It's really looking like it's going to pay off because he's been one of the better hitters in minor league baseball this year as a 19-year-old. And
actually, we could probably just, since it's in the can, go ahead and preview it now, Ian. Sure. In an upcoming episode, we talked with Red Sox scouting director Paul Taboni, and he went in pretty in depth, honestly, about the Nick Yorke scouting process, the Nick Yorke, pick, why they made it, what they were thinking. So that's something to look forward to. And I don't think it'll be the next episode. I think we're holding it for the one after, just to find it might be the next episode, but we're just trying to find a good spot to slot that in because we had him for a full hour. So.
Yeah. And I think a couple other things on Yorke. Speed wise, he's not very fast. He's probably like a 40 runner right now. I don't think it's not going to be a major part of his game. Maybe he's a 45, but, and then defensively, it was a mixed bag. He only played second base. I think 2 of the games I was there, and he didn't have a lot of action in one of them. And the second one, he had a few plays, and one of them he had a really good diving stop, but it was more of like a reaction play where he had one crossover step and a dive. It wasn't one where he really had to do anything.
Right.
But there were a couple plays later in the game, and don't get me wrong, good play, good instinctual play, but it wasn't something you can kind of really read into his defense on it because it's just such like an instinct like driven play. You just react to the ball's hit and you dive. But there's one a little later where it was a ground ball between the first and the second baseman, and he went and made the play. But it was one of those things that we talked about a little bit last week. He's a little like robotic and stiff in the field. He just doesn't – it's not the most fluid actions. And there's someone a little later that I'll talk about that is fluid in the field. Mm. But it's a little vertical and upright for my liking. And he made the play, don't get me wrong. But it's those little things that you notice that don't get exposed in the low minors. But once you get up to the speed of the game, you're going to see at the major league level, it becomes a bigger deal. And I think that it's something that his defense is going to be fine going through the minors. But I just think that when you get up to the major league level, the little things like the footwork around the bag at second base, the footwork on turning those double plays when you're the guy, initiating them, getting that good, getting and surrounding a ball in between the first and second base hole, like things like that are the things that I think are going to be a little like unnatural for him. And if he can get to like a 45, it'll be fine. But if not, I think the bat is good enough to carry him anywhere. So it won't really matter. But it just value wise, his peak value would be at second base.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, that's it. That's good stuff. Who else were highlights for you, Ian? Because those were obviously the big names that you saw down there. I can think of maybe one pitcher that might have stood out.
Yeah, I can run through the pitchers pretty quickly.
Well, I don't know that we need to go because
I'm not going to do everyone.
But that's what I was just going to preview for. If you want reports on literally every relief pitcher and every starting pitcher, but Yusniel Padron Artiles,
because
that's
I saw
on Patreon. So,
well, it's also on the website. All the scouting reports are updated except for I think the pitchers from the last game.
I still have to get half of them up, but they're going to be updated within a week, certainly less. Just from the relievers, I think the
The guy I liked the most was Jacob Wallace. He was acquired from the Rockies last year for Kevin Pillar in September. He was a trade deadline acquisition. And he was 1 inning, 2 strikeouts, so not a lot going on there in terms of like length appearance. But he was electric. I mean, he had 8 swinging strikes in 1 inning where he faced 3 batters, and he was 96-98 with a slider, 83-86 with an elite spin rate, like over 3,000 RPMs. So that's really good for those who don't really know like how the spin rate stuff works. And the delivery is really bad. There's a ton of effort, and he's had some trouble throwing strikes in the past. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what has kind of clicked for him. But since I think I got to bring up my notes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Ian, you can go ahead with the numbers, but it's intriguing to me how bad he was early in the year and what.
Yeah, especially with that stuff. That's why I want to watch some video, and I'm efforting to find someone who saw him earlier in the season to kind of get some info. But yeah, like since 8-5, so since August 5th, he's pitched 11 innings. He's allowed 3 hits, 2 earned runs. He's walked 4, and he has 20 strikeouts, which is kind of good. So I don't know what's clicked for him, but yeah, he was throwing strikes in this outing. The fastball had life. He's got a really, violent delivery, but it's off-putting for hitters. It's electric arm speed. There's just it's a lot. He ticks a lot of the boxes you look for in a modern relief pitcher. And it's one of those things like, do I think like the odds of him staying healthy and having a very long career as a successful bullpen are high? Probably not, unfortunately, because relievers these days are so volatile. But do I think he'll get up to the big leagues at some point and, have a chance to be, and there's late inning potential? Absolutely. Like this is a guy who, if he gets up there and throws enough strikes, definitely has, at least setup guy potential.
Yeah. I mean, as a New England guy, a guy that I think a lot of people in New England are probably pulling for. UConn grad, or not grad, but went to
he's
UConn.
From Methuen.
Went from Methuen, Massachusetts. Yep. So
yeah. And then the other pitchers, I think, just the ones to hit on probably would be Brandon Walter.
Yeah.
He's been kind of one of the big risers in the system.
Pop-up guy, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's a good example of someone that, his start was a good example of why you can't just scout the stat line. Like, if you looked at his stats of the game, I'm pretty sure he got lit. It was like, looks like he got lit. It was like 3 1/3 innings, 8 runs, like 8 hits, couple of home runs. But I think the context is important here. His defense really let him down, especially they had some issues behind the plate in that game. And there was some weak contact. He gave up some missiles, don't get me wrong, too. But I thought the stuff looked pretty good. It was, fastball was like 92-94, topped out at 95. Some arm side run, good changeup at 83-85. I think it flashed plus. And then a slider like 80-83, really frisbee, long horizontal breaking ball. Probably put a 50 on it. So I want 55 fastball, 60 changeup, 50 slider. Delivery is definitely unique for a potential starter. Don't get me wrong. He really, he's coming from that low 3/4 arm slot. But it's atypical, but I do think that the arsenal is enough to kind of push him, at least get up to AAA as a starter, and then we'll see. I'm not sure I think it's probably more like a swingman profile, but I do think there's major league potential in his arm. And then another guy who I know has got some love this year is Brennan Celucci, and he's an interesting one to me because I saw a really good outing. It was 1 inning, 2 strikeouts, nothing else. But for the year, his strikeout rate is like 15 or 16 per 9, and his walk rate is like 7 per 9 or 8 per 9. Yeah. And you could see why, because I'll post an image on Twitter at some point, hopefully before this is up. But he's looking at third base when he releases the ball. Like he's not even looking close to the catcher when he throws the ball. His delivery is just one of the most violent, unique ones I've seen in a long time. Like his head whack is crazy.
Is it pure sidearm or low 3/4? I mean, it's super.
No, he's directly over the top.
He's
directly over the top. He comes directly over the top. Okay. Yeah, it's really funky. How does that even make? I have no idea.
How physically does that work? Interesting.
I have no idea, but I have video of it, and when I stopped, I was using my camera thing to freeze to look at individual stills of it, and the one of him, he's literally looking at the third baseman as the ball is being released. It's crazy, but his stuff is really good. 93-95 slider, same velo kind of as Wallace, 83-86, and from the left side, it's really off-putting. But yeah, it's a max effort guy, like head whack. I think the stuff is good. I'm just very concerned that the command will never and control will never get there enough to be a major leaguer. But on stuff alone, there's definitely an intriguing guy there. Rapid fire on the rest of the guys, or a couple more. O'Donnell Mosqueda is another one who him and Yorvan Pantoja kind of a couple more interesting lefties. Both are up into like the mid 90s with a good breaking ball. Zach Bryant was another one acquired in a trade. He was 92, 96 with a breaking ball, 84 to 86. Missed some bats with his fastball. He's got a good fastball with late life. So that's interesting. And then the last guy I'll mention is Chase Shugart. This was interesting that as a starter, he was up to 97. And I think he's a reliever because he's like 5'10". But he'll show 4 pitches, and I do think there's a chance as a reliever because he's got this fastball curveball combo that I would put as like above average. So he was interesting. As his start was pretty good, but I think long term it's a reliever. It's just an interesting arm. The fact that he's up to 97 was something new for me.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing him in Greenville and it was 4 pitches. It's just he had to learn how to sequence, and they were interesting, but it was just it seemed random. It seemed like almost like you would pitch playing MLB The Show. Just like you're not necessarily sequencing, right? You're just kind of,
yeah. Like I went 55 on the fastball, 55 on the curveball, then 40 on the changeup, and like 40-ish on the slider, maybe a 45. Mm-hmm. So I think he's more like he's a 2-pitch guy eventually, but it's good to have those pitches when you're starting. So we'll kind of see what happens with him.
Yeah, I mean, and then Walter is just interesting to me. I mean, if the season ended today, I mean, it ends in 3 weeks, so I guess at that point doesn't really matter. But like, Walter might be the pitcher of the year in the system. It's like either him or Bayo, which is an insane thing to say. If I told you that entering the year, you would have looked at me like I was crazy. So, yeah, I mean, those are two.
And I think I don't remember if we talked about it on here or in private, but it kind of shows that I think he's even a pop-up pitcher for them because they started him off in Salem as like a 24-year-old or a 25-year-old in the bullpen.
Yeah.
So you don't do that with someone that you kind of have high expectations for.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that happened with Salem, because we remember the beginning of the year, they had guys like Jordan DiValerio who were throwing designed 3-inning piggyback outings, right? Like that was what they were supposed to be doing. Casey Cobb was kind of doing that. Robert Kwiatkowski, these kind of like undrafted free agents from last year. Walter, like I saw Walter for 1 inning and I like barely paid attention because it's like, okay, yeah, I got some velos. He's, he had a fine inning against Fredericksburg, who at the time was like the worst team in the minor leagues. But like, yeah, it's wild to see the way he's kind of popped up for them and, moved up a level he's still even a shade old for Greenville, frankly. So yeah, that's interesting. How about the hitting side, Ian? Who were the kind of highlights for you on that side of the ball in addition to Yorke? Obviously, I could think of a couple off the top of my head who you would probably look at maybe, and Christian Koss and obviously Big Joe and Steven Scott, the Meatball Gang.
Yeah, so Koss was pretty good. He had a couple hits, I think, in most of the games. And I was equally impressed with him at the plate as I was in the field. At the plate, though, it's this pretty simple swing. He's got some bat speed. The ball jumps off his bat. He's direct to the ball. He doesn't try to do too much. He goes up there and he tries to hit a hard line drive. And he successfully did that a lot of the time when I was there. And he's got some sneaky power for someone his size. I think he has I looked at the stats. Since like July 1st, he has 10 home runs. He's hitting about 320, with like a 360 OBP, 530 something slug. So he's had a really good, couple months stretch. And the thing that impressed me the most was in the field, actually. I just really liked the way he fielded shortstop. He made some good plays. He was comfortable charging the ball. He was comfortable going to the hole. He's got, plenty of arm for that throw. It's not a standout arm, but he's got enough carry to get it there. And I just really liked the way how heady he was and how into the game he was. Like there were certain things like the situation that stood out to me is there was a guy on second, 2 outs, and the leadoff hitter was up. And there was a ground ball to his right, so he had to backhand it. And instead of trying to go to first base for what would have been a close play with a leadoff hitter who was a plus runner, he just threw to third base for the tag play on the runner going to third who was right in front of him. And that's just a little thing, but it really is like an instinctual play to know that, okay, if I go to first, this is going to be a bang-bang play, but I have a guaranteed out at third if I just throw it to third here. Like little things like that are something that not every player is going to realize, and I just was very impressed with him in the field with that. And then also, as I said, he really hit well when I was there. So that was intriguing and, good to see. From the Meatball Gang, Joe Davis he's got raw power. Like he hit an absolute tank in the last game of the series. And at first base, he actually wasn't that bad. I thought he moved pretty well at first base. It's not a lot of range, but in terms of athletically for his size, I thought it was actually okay. And he had a couple plays where he'd come off the base and tag the guy, and rather than trying to hold the base, some instinctual plays as a first baseman. And I think the biggest thing for me is just the crowd getting behind him was remarkable. Like, I've never seen a player have that kind of you would have thought he was the best prospect in baseball. Like, the crowd went nuts every time he came to the plate, Big Joe chants, and he got hit once, and their crowd was the most. I've never seen a crowd so upset
like
about
a
pitcher hitting a hitter. Like, they were booing the heck out of the pitcher just for hitting a guy accidentally in the jersey. And every time he ran, guys are going nuts. Like, he goes first to third on a play and everyone's chanting Big Joe. It was a kind of a wild atmosphere. And I'd highly recommend to if you're interested in kind of hearing more about Joe Davis and Steven Scott, the Greenville Drive, their guys down there who do a great job, did an article recently about their friendship, because they actually live together in a trailer and barbecue on Mondays. And
Mondays being
awesome.
the off day every week, of course, is the
and
context.
It's awesome. And so, you should definitely check it out. It's a really good article. You can see it on the Drive Twitter. They have it. And Davis, I'm not sure what he is. Like, there's swing and miss in his game. The power's legit, but he's a 20 runner, It's a tough profile, let's say. But it's a lot of fun to watch, and I think he's definitely like an ore guy at worst. Like, he'll stick around and hit fastballs and mash for a few years, or is kind of doing that. So that was fun. And then Steven Scott actually was pretty interesting. He was I just really liked his approach at the plate. I'm not sure what position he plays. He caught one time I was there, played the outfield another time. Catcher it wasn't great. He's not the most mobile guy, but he can catch and throw a little bit. It's below average arm, but he can get the throws there. So he's the defense isn't great, puts a lot of pressure on the bat, but I just think that his approach is advanced. He has some pop, and he's actually got like a decent hit tool. I think he's got more hit than Davis does. So I'm interested in Scott. He's someone that I know he's killed Greenville, and I'm interested to see what they do with him next year, because I would not be surprised at all if he gets that aggressive push straight up to Portland to start next year.
They have room, no question. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I guess just kind of to wrap it up, I'll have stuff on the news page on most of these guys eventually. But Eli Marrero, kind of interesting. He's had a really good year hitting at the plate. He can catch and throw. He's just super athletic for a catcher, and I think that's what stood out the most. Like, he stole a couple bases. He's got his good pop times. He's around like 2 seconds with the pop times. He received pretty well, so that was interesting. Tyler Dearden, he's what I'm kind of confused on. He looks very pull happy at times, and then other times he'll just like inside out a fastball to left field, and it's strange. I had a rough time getting a feel for him. My concerns are, though, there's a ton of swing and miss in his game, and it's a left field only profile defensively, and it's not great out there even as he's not great even in left field. So a lot of pressure on the bat. And then I guess the last guy I'll mention is Brandon Howlett. I know he's one of the higher ranked guys on the team, but it was a rough look. He's just got so much swing and miss in his game. I don't know if you have his numbers up, but I think his strikeout rate's like 33% or something.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
And don't get me wrong, his power is very real. Like, he had a 422-foot home run on the last day off the the warehouses in left field, the apartment buildings in left field. That was an absolute missile. But I'm just not sure
he struck out.
Yeah, I'm just not sure he's ever going to get to enough contact for that power to play, and that's kind of the concern I have with him. And I'm not sold he's a third baseman either. So that combo is kind of why I'm a little down on him compared to some of the other guys there. I'm just very serious concerns about the hit tool.
Yeah, for the year he's hitting, Brennan Howlett's hitting 248, 342, 460, which is not a terrible line, but it's a 32.5% K rate, which is actually up from 2019 when he was at 31.
And this
walk
is the
rate's
thing
10, which is 10 and a half, which is fine.
Yeah, he'll walk, and I think this is the thing that is I'm kind of having some concerns, or we talked about with Danny Diaz, is just the hit tool, is the emphasis on hit tool and how important it is I think is becoming even more than it was in like the 90s when you could kind of get away, because pitchers are getting so good that you have to be able to make
Right.
contact, and guys who don't make contact are just really struggling. And I mean, and we're seeing it even in the majors this year. Like Jaron Duran goes up to the big leagues after showing a ton of power. He only hit like 270 and it struck out a lot in AAA. He's getting eaten alive by major league pitching. Someone like Jared Kalenic, who didn't strike out that much, is getting eaten alive. Guys like Drew Waters are getting exposed in the high minors. Like, if you don't have a hit tool these days, it's becoming more and more apparent, and that's just my concern with Howlett.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Any general final thoughts on your look at Greenville, Ian, before we go to emails?
I think that Nick Yorke is a clear top 5 guy in the system, and
he will be
higher,
when we update.
and he's closer to the top tier than that second tier in that group for me. Other than that, Groome is good, but it's not. I just don't think the ceiling is there. And after that, like there's a bunch of guys in like the 30 to 60 range. They don't really have that many truly like top end system prospects, which I guess I kind of knew, but it was good to get some confirmation on that. But I do think that there's 4 or 5 guys who I can comfortably put like potential major league grades on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good squad. Go check them out. You got 3 weeks left. And actually, Ian, I think by the time this comes out, the rankings will be done. So.
Well, also, I think this is the Rise last homestand of the year. So actually.
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, you can see them on the road. Yeah, because they've got a series in Aberdeen, or was that Salem?
Aberdeen's low A, I think.
Aberdeen's low A. Yeah, so that'd be Salem. They're in, because we were looking at this trying to figure out what weekend you were going to go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hickory,
this is their last homestand, I know.
So, all right, well, fair enough. If you're in Greenville, go see them this weekend. If they come to your town, if you're in Hickory, or I forget where they finished the year, but at any rate, cool. All right, well, let's get to your emails again. If you want to email us, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. Hit us up. And our first email, Ian, comes from our friend Harrison, and he says, looking at the catchers throughout the system, from Connor Wong down to Anderson Lira in the DSL, are there any that you think are there any that you think of as having a decent bat with a strong chance of sticking behind the plate? My impression is that most of them are either glove or bat, but is there anyone you've seen or gotten scouting reports on that could develop into a complete package? Thanks for taking my question, Harrison. Interesting question, Ian. I'll throw it to you first. What do you think on that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think if I was to go down all the way to system, I think that actually of the guys I've seen, I've never seen Nathan Hickey, so I don't know what we're doing with him.
Yeah.
But and same with Nisbel Marcano, haven't seen him, or a few of the other FCL catchers or gotten reports really on them. But Lira is the guy that just in the combination of talking to scouts and who I've seen, I think has the best chance of that. Obviously, he's very far away. He's in the FCL right now. He's in the DSL right now.
Yeah, right.
But he's a really good athlete. He's got a good size for a catcher. He can move pretty well. Like, he's athletic enough that I know someone suggested to me that he might end up at third base if they really needed to. Like, so he's good, athletic, and there's definitely some potential at the plate. Because I think when you're looking at like the high minors guys who I would project as a major leaguer, I think Connor Wong probably profiles as a backup, more like a defense first backup. Though he's hitting really well of late. I don't think that should be kind of what
that's what I was going to say. Look, there's a reason Connor Wong is the highest ranked catcher in the system for us.
Right. So it's like he probably has the best chance because he's got the closest proximity and probability. But if you really wanted, like, the lotto ticket would definitely be Lira.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's interesting names at catcher at most levels at this point. We were talking today about Cole Cottom in Portland, who's having a pretty good year at the dish. I'm just saying he's having a good year at the plate. Not that again, he's like if ranked in the back third of our rankings. You talked about how you liked Eli Marrero. These are just guys to follow. They're not necessarily top prospects of the Wong or even Lira level, but they're interesting guys to think about. And again, we have to see what Hickey is after some time in the system. Can he stick behind the plate? We know that the stick is generally well regarded, but can he stick behind the plate? So thanks for the question, Harrison. Our next email comes from Alex. He says, hey guys, new to all of this prospect stuff, can you explain how international free agency works? Do the Red Sox get more money to spend like how they did in the draft? I think he means based on their record. Also was reading was reading that Brian Bayo's fastball has undesirable metrics and may not play as well in the majors. Would another tick up of velocity help with some of these issues? Thanks, Alex. I'll take the first half of that, Ian, if you want to take the second. But no, international free agency bonus caps are not set based on record. They're set based on whether you get whether you get revenue sharing. It's a revenue sharing thing. It's not based on how you finished the previous season. And right now, teams, due to COVID, before this wasn't the case due to COVID, but before COVID, you could trade money to add to your IFA cap, which is what the Red Sox did in 2017, in the year I was talking about earlier. You can't do that right now because of COVID. They didn't do that this past season, and they're not doing it next year. And frankly, this is all going to be moot. There's very likely going to be an international draft soon. I don't know if it'll be in this next CBA. If it's not in the next one, it'll be in the one after it. So soon enough, there's going to be an international draft. The owners want it. The players will use that as a concession to get something they want. So there will be an international draft soon enough. Ian, as far as Bayo's fastball, I haven't heard undesirable metrics and may not play as well in the majors. Would another tick of velocity help?
I haven't seen his metrics, so I don't know. Or maybe if you can follow up and send a link where you saw that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
But I haven't seen his metrics, so I'm not sure. But I'll just say with regards to the metrics thing, like velocity isn't really likely to change that. If he adds like another tick, he's already throwing like up to 100. I don't think, where he's not going to go like be up to 102, 103. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. He kind of like, I'm not sure there's a lot more velocity to gain there. So, but yeah, if you could send along the article or where you read that, that would be great. I'm going to ask around on it now, but I haven't heard that. So I don't know. I'm not going to say anything until once I hear, or it's if reasonable. I can confirm or what's going on there.
Reasonable. Our next question comes from Ben. He says, "Hi guys, I was looking at the top international players for the upcoming signing period, and the Red Sox are not connected with anyone in the top 15. I presume he's referring to the MLB list that just came out.
Yeah, because the highest one they were connected to was like 19, I want to say.
Yep. It seems like that has been the case the last few years. Is there a reason why they don't target those types of players as frequently? Are the top international players comparable to the top high school players in a draft class? And do you think this could lead to them missing out on a higher-end prospect down the line? Thanks, Ben. Ian, we talked a little bit about this earlier. One thing that I'll add is, there's nothing to say that they're not targeting these guys, right? The thing with a free agent market is that these guys are free to sign with whoever they want. It could be that the Red Sox like the player but don't want to give them $3 million. Right?
Well, that's the thing is, if one team is offering $3 million, the Red Sox value him at $2 million, they're not going to get him. Right. That's just how,
So that's
how this stuff works.
And it is a finite pool of money that you have. I mean, when you can't trade for more money, you're limited in what you can do. And if you have guys who you want to sign, look, we've kind of talked about this with the draft before with kind of the day 3 bonus money guys, right? Where are you better with one guy at $1 million or 3 guys who split $1 million? It depends how much better the first guy is. Same is true in the international class. Look, they gave, Daniel Flores $3.1 million because they thought he was worth it. They legit traded Nick Longy to get that money.
Well, that's what I was saying. It was different back then, though, because you could actually trade for more money, whereas now you can't do that.
Sure, and it's like now, with resources being even more sparse, it's tough to make these big outlays to guys. You really have to be, convicted of the fact that Jason Dominguez is Jason Dominguez. That Julio Rodriguez from the Mariners, right? I'm blanking on his last name for some reason. Ian.
No, it's Julio Rodriguez.
Julio Rodriguez. Okay, thank you. I don't know why it didn't sound.
Well, and I think with Jason Dominguez, Jason Dominguez has been really bad in low A, or not really bad, but he's been kind of
right.
He's striking out a ton. And I know scouts have seen him and they've not been that impressed. Because he's a running back. He looks like an NFL player and he's 18 and it's just such a unique body, but he's striking out like a 33% clip. So,
yeah.
I mean, you look at Kevin Maiton was seen as, this generational player, not generational, but was seen as a really good prospect. And he's pretty much out of baseball now. like eating his way out of baseball, and he got what, 4 point something million. Like, you never know with the international guys. Some are going to hit, some aren't. And that's why it's like, maybe just because they're not, going with the top guys doesn't mean they're not going to end up with the best player in the class. Just kind of what we talked about earlier with that 2017 class. The top guys have turned out to be the guys who got 5, 10K.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, you look at like the top 100 prospects, like, yeah, the top guys in the top 100 prospects who were international signees, like Rodriguez, got a ton of money.
Luciano, Wander Franco, they all got a ton of money. Yeah.
But that said, there are guys on there who didn't. Like, I think Keibert Ruiz.
Yeah, you got nothing. Keibert Ruiz. And I think the other thing, too, is you have to remember is I think a lot of these guys, they knew where they were going a few years ago,
Oh, sure. Yeah, and that's the thing.
And the thing is, like, the Red Sox have known they're not going to land those guys for a couple of years, potentially. Like, it's not, this isn't like a new thing to them.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, Ian, is that, they're signing these guys. They're not signing them months before the deadline. They've had deals agreed to for the most part for a while, right? So there's something to the effect of like finding these guys early and locking them up. Like, for all we know, the Red Sox are getting the top guys in classes, right? Like,
well, I think you look back at Rafael Devers. Like, Rafael Devers signed for 1.6 million, 1.5 million, and he's turned into the top guy from that class. And he didn't get close to the top bonus in that class from anyone.
No.
So it's like you don't know, and that's why it's like it's such a. I've always been like kind of an advocate of just using the volume approach. Just sign as many guys as you can, and see what happens, because you never know. Who's going to turn out. Like Aldo Ramirez. I guess they purchased his right for $550, so he's kind of a unique case. But he turned into Kyle Schwarber eventually through trade. Like some guys, set in Rafaela, Joe Jimenez are top 20 prospects who's received 5, 10K. Like it's a very efficient way to add talent, and it's just you got to get as many swings or bites at the apple as you can, sign as many guys as possible, and see what happens.
For sure. Our next email comes from Patreon supporter Mark Herman, and Mark asks, Ian, this is an interesting question. So this might come off as a bit ranty, but it is what it is. My question: after watching Michael Chavis struggle mightily versus the high heat, then Dahlbeck struggle with it, to now Duran struggling with it, I have to wonder if it's an undefeatable pitch, or should the Red Sox minor league hitting coaches be working on it studiously? And why aren't they? Thanks for the email, Mark. First off, I think we can say that I would not agree that they are not working on hitting high fastballs. See Ian's comments earlier. A, it's hard to hit, and B, it's like, I don't know. Why don't you? I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Ian, and then if I have anything to add, I'll throw them in. But
I think though that this is kind of like those guys. That's the issues they had. Like we've talked about with Duran, he's struggled with high fastballs since his swing change, and his swing change has caused more swing and miss. And that's kind of the trade-off. Like not all guys are going to be natural hitters who can turn on 96 miles an hour, 97 miles an hour up in the zone.
Right.
Not every player, because if they did, pitchers wouldn't throw that pitch. Like certain guys just can't get to that pitch, then they've never been able to get to it. And like Chavis is an example. He couldn't hit that pitch in the minors. Dahlbeck couldn't hit that pitch in the minors. Like certain guys just struggle with velocity because they don't have the best bat speed. And I think it's kind of like focusing on those three. You're kind of picking guys who all had swing and miss profiles and have had holes in their swing since they signed. So it's kind of like an unfair comparison. Whereas I think like a better example is someone like Rafael Devers, where Rafael Devers struggled with high fastballs, made an adjustment, and can now hit them because he's got more bat speed. He's a better, he's a more natural hitter than those guys. Those guys just aren't the most natural hitters. Right. So they were going to struggle with those pitches regardless of what happens. Like the Red Sox have tried. If there was a way to fix it, they would have, but they're just, for some guys, there just isn't. Like,
it's not like the Red Sox have been caught off guard by the presence of the high fastball.
Like, I mean, if something with Duran, like if I was saying it for, since the entire season, since I saw him in April,
the Red Sox know it.
You can believe the Red Sox know it too. Like it's one of those things that it wasn't a secret. People knew this, and the hope was that he would be able to adjust to it, and he just unfortunately has not been able to.
Our next email comes from Mikey. He says, "Hi, Chris and Ian. My name is Mike." Oh, sorry, Mike. It says Mikey in your email handle. First time emailer, but long time podcast listener. I'm curious about what you guys would think about the Sox taking a shot at Gavin Lux. Pipe dream scenario, and I'm not sure what his value could be, But at the right price, I think it would be an interesting option for them to go after to fill the second base hole if they choose to go that route. Also, do you think Connor Siebold has a chance to win a rotation spot out of spring training next year? Thanks, guys, and keep up the great work. Thanks for the email, Mike. Ian, your thoughts on the Lux thing? I think the idea being that Jeter Downs has certainly not positioned himself like we might have hoped to take over the second base job next year.
Yeah, he's not going to. He will not be your opening day second baseman next year. I think it's pretty clear that Kike Hernandez or someone, a free agent, will be their opening day second baseman next year, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe a Romeo.
I mean, it could be the question is, what are they doing with Duran to open the year? Like, if Duran makes the team... I don't
think there's any way Duran is the starting center fielder next year, so...
Even you think they would go, like Verdugo in center, Renfroe in right?
I think they'll acquire someone. I think he starts... Yeah, I think he starts next year in the minors, if I would had to guess.
I think that sounds right.
I mean, I'm watching the game right now, and I think he's 0-for-3 with 3 strikeouts, and he almost just cost them a run with it was a little thing, but it's the same thing we've talked about over and over. His reads and instincts in center field are just not good. It was a line drive that was at him and just kept carrying, and he should have caught it, but he misread it and wasn't close to it. And it's little things like that playing center field you just can't have at the major league level.
Yeah.
Like, Kike Hernandez has been a fantastic defensive center fielder.
Yeah.
You're not really seeing the drop off from Bradley, but when you have Duran out there, you really notice it. And so I don't think that he's likely going to open the year as center field. With Lux, the hard thing is he's on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are one of the smartest front offices. They're not going to panic. Like, they know the talent, and they're going to want full value for him.
Let's give context in what he's done this year.
He's been terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's I don't know if you have his stats up, but he's been atrocious.
I should have pulled it up, but I will now.
He's been atrocious this year, and I think the problem with him is that, if you're going out and acquiring him, you're going to be paying a ransom's price for a guy who is just as much an unknown as someone like Jeter Downs would be, or other, even Jarren Duran is. So I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox and the Dodgers. I don't think they match up well in a trade, and I don't see it as a likely outcome. If they can get him for cheap, absolutely. I'm all about adding as much talent as possible. I just don't think it's likely that the Dodgers would give him away.
Yeah, Lux is hitting 221, 302, 340 on the year, and he actually just got sent down to AAA. So there you go on Gavin Lux. And then as for the second part of the email, Connor Siebold with a rotation spot out of spring training next year, I don't think that's... I mean, it's almost the same thing as Houck entering this year of, why would you commit to that when he can be the sixth starter?
Well, that's the thing, is that I would rather go into the year with 5 starters penciled in and him as my depth guy.
Yes.
Because we saw this year, they went in, they had these grand plans with Houck, Mata, Siebold as their depth guy, and all of them got hurt.
Right.
You can never have enough starting pitching. I think if I had to guess, the only locks for the rotation next year is Sale and Eovaldi. Isn't Eduardo Rodriguez is a free agent? I would assume he'll be back.
You never know,
I would guess. You never know. And then I don't know this. I have a feeling they're going to try to transition Whitlock to the rotation, and I 100% would do that if I were them. And I think, maybe there's a chance he grabs one of them. Houck, I don't think he's a starter, so I don't think he grabs one of them. But Pivetta, maybe. Pavetta's your fifth guy's fine. I
like Pivetta as the fifth starter. I've no problem with that.
I just don't. I think Siebold is more likely, especially given how limited his innings were this year, and the fact that, unfortunately, because he's on the 40-man, he can't be sent to the AFL, which that's such a dumb rule. But I understand why.
We did confirm that they can't.
I understand why the Players Association has it, but it's a really dumb rule.
Yeah.
If the player and the team both want it, I think it should be allowed personally. But anyway. But because he needs to get innings, and unfortunately, he's not going to be able to go get them in a game situation there.
I mean, maybe he goes and plays winter ball. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But I think that he'll likely start the year in AAA.
Yeah.
But I think next year is a good bet to make his major league debut.
Oh, no question. Yeah, I agree with that too.
I mean, frankly, at the rate they're going losing starters, who knows? Maybe he might
come up this year.
Yeah.
I think if they have another starter go down and they have enough ramp up time, I could absolutely see it.
Yeah, because
it can't be his start is tomorrow. We learned it today. We need him. I don't think they'll do
that. When it's short term, that's why they called up Espinal, who I do like him. But
they
Espinal,
went and got Peacock to make the sixth. Day start. Yeah. Yep. All right. Our next question is from Nick. He says, "Hey guys, I was looking at the team rosters on the site and noticed Romeo Raudes on the restricted list. I haven't heard his name in a long time, but I remember some hype around him a couple years ago. The site says he left his Winter League team this past offseason with an injury, and he is not currently assigned to a team, but I was wondering if you have any more info on his situation. Thanks for the email, Nick. Routes is on the restricted list, which means he's not with a team at all. We don't know what the deal is. I know he got put on the restricted list earlier this season, sorry. Was posting on his social media from back home in, is he Panama? No, he's Nicaraguan.
Yeah, he's Nicaragua. I would just say, I would not count on him coming back to play.
Yeah, he was coming back from Tommy John as it was. Nick Romeo Routes, for those who might remember, he was an intriguing young pitcher who had a very interesting, like, not even delivery, like the thing, he did a little twisty thing going into his wind up not even going into his set position.
No, he did. He like completely crouched on the mound.
Yeah. Well, he also did this twist. Little like twist into the crouch, like.
Yes. Yeah.
But he was kind of promising. He really kind of had leveled out in high A, underwent Tommy John surgery, got hurt again last year in winter ball in Nicaragua, and hasn't pitched this year. I think he was in camp and he was ready to go. So I don't know if he got hurt again or what, but he is not with a team right now. So that is the situation there with Routes. Next question. Hi, Chris and Ian. This is from Michael. I'm wondering about how the difficulty level of each minor league level changes throughout the course of the year, particularly in the lower minors. For example, all else equal, is it more impressive for a prospect to be performing well in low A in May or low A right now? On one hand, each level could get weaker throughout the season because the best players are getting promoted. But on the other hand, young players are presumably improving throughout the season. Like if a hitter starts hitting really well in July in high A, is that because many of the best pitchers in May are now in double A and they've been replaced by promotions from low A? Thanks as always, Michael. It's an interesting thought experiment, Ian. I think my response, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way or anything like that, is that you're almost kind of overthinking it by going that far into it, because think of it this way. If a player is at a level and promoted, you think of him as kind of like moving up to the next level, talent and ability wise, right? Like he belongs in theory at the next level. If a player is promoted to a level, is because the team thinks they belong at that level. So in theory, the low A level of play should not necessarily drastically improve. The high A level of play should not necessarily drastically improve or get worse, for that matter, as the season goes on. Does that make sense? I think it's kind of it isn't that drastic a change. Now, I think what in theory will change is which teams are better, and that is why the Class A levels used to have first half and second half champions, because you had teams that would lose a handful of their best players mid-year, and now they are much worse, but they were a juggernaut in the first half, and you want them to be rewarded with a playoff berth. Conversely, you could also have a bunch of guys come in and make your team better, but you're already in such a hole from the first half that you're worse. So, I think the balance of power might shift. And so that's why, look at things like, is a guy facing pitchers or hitters who are older or younger than him on Baseball Reference? The talent level in the league, look at league average, not even talent level, but like environments are probably more important, right? And what kind of parks are in that level? How is the pitching at that level this year? How are hitters faring against certain teams? And we've talked about things like, how is playing the same team 6 days in a row affecting things? How is only playing teams in your division affecting things? And we mentioned next year that's going to expand a little bit, I think last episode, right? How the roster's got announced.
Yeah, and then like Worcester announced their schedule this week, and they have almost all 6-game stretches. They have a couple 3-gamers in there, like after the All-Star break and before the All-Star break. There's some
okay.
And then they also have some like Monday games for like holidays.
Yeah, I saw they added that, which is smart.
Yeah. But for the most part, it's like the same idea schedule-wise.
Yeah. So we'll see how that all plays out. But a good question. But like I said, I think that's almost thinking it through too much. And I think our final email comes from Corey, Ian, who sent this in while we were recording. He sent it in literally Not while we're recording, he said it a couple hours ago. But he says, hey guys, with Tristan Casas currently the system's top prospect and certainly grabbing attention after his Olympic performance, I was wondering if you could compare how he was viewed as a prospect with Anthony Rizzo and Lars Anderson when they are at this stage of their respective developments. Obviously, we know how the other two ultimately turned out, but how would you rank the three when they were all at this stage? Thanks for all you do, Corey. Thanks for the email, Corey. Ian, I went ahead and pulled up Lars Anderson and Anthony Rizzo's pages. When Anthony Rizzo was entering his 2012 season, that was after the trade to San Diego. He was ranked the 47th best prospect in Baseball America's poll, 37th in MLB's not poll list. Entering 2011, he was the 75th ranked prospect. That was the year that he spent. 2011 was also the year he was coming off of his year in Portland when he was ranked in the ranked 75th in BA's list. I think he probably, Ian, is at the bottom of the list of these three with how they were perceived coming out of AA. Does that sound fair to you? I know that actually, were you even Rizzo might have been before you actually. Or
so was Lars.
So was Lars.
When was Rizzo? 2000. I joined in 2010.
Okay, so actually, yeah. So you were. He was.
But
there.
I wasn't going to games
yet. He was traded the 2010-11 offseason.
Oh no, I joined after the 2010 season.
Yeah, because he spent 2011. He went to AAA Tucson in 2011.
Yeah, I joined after the 2010 season. Yeah.
Lars Anderson was before Rizzo, so he was definitely before you joined the site. Anderson, I think, might be the most highly regarded of the three. His page is, of course, not loading. There we go. Entering the 2008 season, which is the season he spent in Portland was 08. He started the 2008 season in Lancaster and then went to Portland. So I guess the season we would probably want is entering 2010, which he had spent entering 09, which he spent the entirety of with Portland after 40 games there in 08. He entered the 2009 season, the 17th ranked prospect in Baseball America's list. After that season, he slipped to 87th because he, in 2009 in Portland, hit, 233, 328, 345. So I think you could say he was very highly thought of after his debut there, where he hit 316, 436, 526 in a limited sample size to end the 08 season. Casas, I think, is more on the upswing coming out of AA than Lars was. Whereas Rizzo, I think, probably had made a similar sort of jump and perhaps more coming out of there. So I think, but it's kind of, their peaks are all roughly similar. Rizzo's just came after the trade for Adrian Gonzalez. Lars's came kind of in the middle of his run in AA, and Casas is, I think, peaking right now after a strong season at AA. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays. I mean, if he goes to AAA next year and hits, I think he winds up with the highest peak of the three of them, potentially, if he's hitting next year in AAA. So, yeah, good question. Glad to provide that historical perspective. Thanks again, podcast at soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. Ian, I think that's about it. Any closing words for the kind people listening and supporting us on Patreon?
No, this is for them also and everyone also. Thank you. Just thank you again for your support. As we said, we wouldn't be able to make these trips without you guys listening and following the site. And it was great to get back to traveling to watch games, and hopefully we'll be able to do some more before the end of the season.
Hopefully we should. And hopefully the timing works out so we'll see how it winds up working, I guess is the way I'll leave it. As always, we want to thank our podcast producer, Podcast Joe 2.0, who helps put this whole thing together and put it out there so y'all can listen to it. Make sure you check out our, I guess, house band is how Joe refers to them, the Ludlow Thieves, who provide us with the intro, outro music, the song All the Money. You can check them out on Spotify, Amazon Music, Tidal, wherever the heck it is that you listen to tunes these days, YouTube. Check out their stuff. They're pretty great. Again, the Ludlow Thieves. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow the site at Sox Prospects. You can on both Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ian on Twitter at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. And again, as we mentioned, you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects, and we want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. That would be Kyle Costigan, Tyler Wooddraw, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, David B., Ben Burnett, Alan Mendel, Kevin Catrides, Ben NRI, Paul Denyer, Lendl Martin, Cassandra Bukta, James P. McMahon, Stephen Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Aaron Meta, Jeff Harwood, Jimmy Mountain, Brian Cowan, Dusty G., Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Bob Introne, Mike Kawano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, and Keith Fox. Thank you all for your support, as well as all of our supporters on patreon.com/SoxProspects. I should mention, Ian, our next rankings update we'll be putting up for supporters on patreon.com. I forget what level we put it at, but numbers 61 to 70 in the poll will go up exclusive to Patreon. And I think we're also releasing to the $5 level supporters some portion of our individual rankings. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be going up on Patreon soon. So again, patreon.com/SoxProspects. I think that'll about do it for Ian. I'm Chris. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back in your eardrums soon for our next episode, which will feature rankings talk and potentially the Paul Taboni interview. So check it out in less than a week. Have a great holiday weekend.